All right, so I am very insecure about getting older and my look, so I've decided to smear a little Vaseline on the camera to give me that softening effect. I've also decided to lower the frames per second, apparently. No, so um the Zoom was being a dickhead again, and I tried some things and they didn't work, and we were just about to give up, and then I saw a thing that said try changing your inputs and outputs, and so I unplugged that cheap ass HD camera that I got a couple years ago, and now it's working. Don't know why sometimes that's not the case. I've also learned that apparently Zoom is a major resource hog, so my
Hmm.
computer might just be struggling with that level of things, but
Oh. Hmm.
for now, y'all just got to deal. At least you can see me, and I am so pretty, if blurrier. Also, the watchwords for today are cold and tired. I'm so cold all the time, and I'm really tired for no reason.
So when you hear
But
those words, scream real loud.
yeah. Um. So I want to talk about my new favorite story.
Oh, okay.
I love the story. I intend to dine out on this story for many years, and in fact, already have at least once. Um. I don't know if it's true. I hope it's true, but it's great even if it's not true.
Yep, I know what that's like.
This is a story about Reddit.
Mm.
You're familiar with Reddit, the quote unquote front page of the internet?
Yes, I've heard of it. They're
Yes.
trying to do an IPO, I think, right now. That's so they're in the news.
Yeah, and they've fucked over a lot of their users that way. But yes,
Mm.
it's a terrible hive of scum and villainy. I think it's a great example of what is wrong with modern humanity. It is basically for people who don't have the guts to go full 4chan troll. It's like Facebook, but with even less moderation. Like it's a scary ass place. Um, and for those of you who aren't familiar, which is unlikely, but just in case, like it's basically just a place where people can. It's like internet forums, but people can make a forum on pretty much fucking anything.
It's like a
And
bulletin
so,
board. I mean,
yeah,
it's just a bulletin board, really. I don't.
yeah,
It's kind of
um,
weird how people think it's like this, oh, kind of a new thing or a special
yeah,
social
yeah,
media
yeah.
thing. Bulletin board. That's all it is.
Yeah. And it is very broad, and there's all sorts of people tell stories there, people have debates there, people share images and art and things like that. I
Video.
used to
Yeah.
spend a fair time on it
Oh.
because there are sort of collections of stories of varying themes that are fun. And so like I used to read the stories about people getting offers for work for creative work but not for money, for exposure, and funny stories about that, and funny stories about like there was one called beggars and choosers, where people would like be desperately begging for assistance or something, but then they'd be like, no, I don't want that, I'd rather have this. One about weird PMs. People said there's ones on various images. There was the great one that was just like cute images and gifs of animals, and I used to do that. But a lot of these I found were purely a dopamine reaction, and I think were stressors and not good for me. And it was weird combinations of cringe and Schadenfreude that I do not think are healthy for me. So
Hmm.
I bailed. My wife does not feel the same. And one of my wife's favorite subreddits that she frequents, and when she finds doozies she tells me about, is Am I the Asshole?
I've heard of that one. Yeah.
In which people write on there and say, here's a thing that happened. Am I an asshole for how I behaved in this?
Well, am I the because usually if you're not the one, there's someone else. I mean, it's not.
Yes. Well, and there are suggested responses. You're the asshole. They're the asshole. I believe nobody looks good here is a
Yeah, right.
version,
Sure,
and
sure.
no asshole here is another version. Um, And Trish likes to tell them to me sometimes, and she only does it on special occasions now because I very strongly believe that, like a lot of these subreddits, most of these stories are bullshit.
Mm,
Um, there's actually been some deep dives into the reasons why people would make up stories and what kind of stories they make up. Sometimes it's to validate the story is built as a hypothetical to validate some point of view they have. Sometimes the story is actually they are not the person in the story, they are the other person, and they are purposely setting it up so that it makes them look bad. And there's all sorts of reasons, and most of them don't make sense enough to be real. And so frequently I'm like, it doesn't sound real, whatever. Like, as I said, this one, don't care if it's not real, because it's amazing. So, for the purposes of simplicity here, and because I believe this is what the poster meant for it to believe, the original poster is female, and I believe the significant other in question is male.
okay.
Doesn't really matter, but those are the pronouns I'm going to be using, so I just wanted to put that out there. I have no confirmation, but I believe that's how it is. So anyway, this woman has been dating this guy. I believe they're both in like their 20s or whatever. So that increases the odds that it's real because 20 somethings are stupid. Um, but anyway, they've been dating for I think about 4 months. And one day he comes to her and says, "Is there anything you need to tell me?" And she's like, "I don't think so." And he's like, "Yeah, I think you do, because I know." And she's like, "Not sure what you know. Don't think I have anything." And so after a while, he's finally like, "Okay, I know you're cheating on me." And she's like, "Do you? Because I didn't know I was cheating on you. I'm cheating on you? Didn't know this." It's like, "Yep, and I have proof." She's like, "Ooh, okay. What proof is this?" And he shows her, and it's on his phone, and it is a photo he took of her phone because it was locked or whatever, but he could see enough. And what it was a text she had received from a contact listed as Dungeon Master, asking when she would next be available to play. Best thing ever. I mean, and just for closure's sake, the "Am I the asshole?" is because she immediately laughed at him. And they cleared it up and he understands now, but he is still hurt and mad at her for having laughed at him. And the internet as a whole obviously was like, "You're not the asshole, also break up with him," which I agree, but also cherish this relationship, because without this relationship you would not have had this story.
That's a great story.
And I'm like, well, apparently according to it, he knows she plays Dungeons and Dragons. So, because originally I'm like the Venn diagram of somebody who knows enough about BDSM to know what that means, but doesn't know enough about Dungeons and Dragons to know what that means, is real, like one person, and it's this guy. But even beyond that, I'm just like this is incredible. I mean, obviously the guy's like the worst way to like forget people, it's not people's fault if they're very, very stupid, but how he handled it is awful. Like, definitely dump his ass. But this is amazing. Also, just I guess this is more information for him, which I don't know. But as I said to somebody just the other day when I was telling this story and they were buying me lunch, in a very literal sense, I've literally dined out on this story. Uh, I am gonna go on record here, and some people will say, "How could you know this?" I just do in my heart. No one in the history of humanity, and no one for all time that humanity considers to exist, has ever or will ever call their BDSM Dom Dungeon Master unironically. Never happened. Do it as a joke, do it just teasing around. And I say this to my wife after she tells the story. She says, "Well, maybe some. I mean, if that's what your Dom wants to be called, then yes. And I said, very true. However, no one ever has or ever will been somebody that unironically wants to be called Dungeon Master as their dominant name and has successfully gotten a submissive. So, not an issue. Like, that's insane. But I love it. I love the story so much.
Good
It is
story.
the best story. Don't know if it's true or not, but I'm going to tell it for the rest of my life. I love that story.
I mean, if it wasn't true, it makes a good joke. It just makes a good,
Right? Right?
yeah.
Well,
it's just a-
kind of. It seems a little hacky. That's like how dumb it is. If
I
you just
suppose.
tell that joke, I'm like, oh, come on. Uh, but I love it. Yeah. I was like, holy crap. She said, yeah. It's from Dungeon Master, inquiring when she's next available to play. And I'm like, oh, and you took that and put it in just your empty head and rattled it around and then ran with it. That's amazing. And you knew she played D&D. Even better. Even better. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Magical Talking Hat Podcast, the only podcast in the world that has Danced with the Devil, but only in mid-afternoon, not by the pale moonlight, because the devil prefers daytime dancing. I mean, nobody ever asks. So there you are. I'm Tony.
And I'm William, and this is episode 671.
Man, this camera is bad. You can barely see, like, the fan's just a blur.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Also, you sound weird, and I don't know if that's your fault or my fault, but the volume is very low, and you are still very loud to me. I don't know why, but
Okay.
it's fine. All right. So this is the day after we posted the last episode. This is Friday. So, and 2 days after we recorded the last episode.
Yeah.
So
Not a lot's happened.
there is not. There is not. I do have a couple of things. Do you have anything? We need something because we got no emails.
Well, I mean, we finished the latest season for All Mankind, I think.
Okay. Okay.
I do recommend that show. I think it's really good. It's probably there may be more accurate or more well done science fiction in terms of like showing how things would actually work. If there's something better out there, I don't know it. This is about the most accurate I've ever seen. There are a few inaccuracies in it that I are not I'm sure those inaccuracies were allowed for production reasons and also for some aesthetic reasons. For example, people move around on Mars, like they even showed a guy like dumping sugar on Mars and stuff, and gravity acts pretty much exactly the way it does on Earth, which wouldn't happen, but it would be probably expensive to make it more accurate, but also it would probably mostly look silly. So
And not necessarily add anything.
Right, exactly. Not necessarily add anything. Like there's no, of course, you can tell by the other things they pay attention to that they know that this isn't strictly accurate. But as you just pointed out, it wouldn't add anything, and it would probably detract actually because it would look weird, and it would probably just you'd be spending that money to make this effect for no reason. So all of the inaccuracies I've seen, so called, are that kind. It's like, yeah, that makes sense that they couldn't or didn't do that. Everything else, they're very. I just can't believe how hard they work to make everything look like and function like the way that it probably actually would. And the alternate history they build is very plausible. I mean, occasionally you'll see a nod to what I suspect are the political views of the showrunners, but it's not. But this isn't a like progressive version of the future of this timeline or a Democratic or Republican or whatever. I don't think anyone could say that they're letting a lot of political bias decide what they make that alternate history future or whatever. Well, history, it's mostly so far, what they make that alternate history look like. Which I appreciate. I mean, I like that they are really sort of pushing aside, maybe whatever their preferences are or beliefs are and saying, well, just, just based on what did happen, other historical precedents, what could we imagine might happen? And I think it's pretty good. I mean, I think it's pretty persuasive, the ideas they have for where it would go. And it's also interesting. And the acting is very good. And the writing's very good. So
It's
I
been
really do recommend it.
very well critiqued.
I recommend it to everybody, really.
I haven't seen you move in like 2 minutes. I can hear you fine, but
Oh.
you're just like.
Okay,
But
well,
I know from the past that on the recording you may look fine, so everybody may see you fine. But to me, you look like a really weird, like remote correspondent thing where we couldn't get a video feed, so it's just a picture, and we came up with a really bad one.
okay. It seems like there was another show we were watching that we got to the end of that was also really good, but now I'm not remembering what it was. But yeah, that's about all I had. What about you?
Well, follow up. How will next week be?
I wish I could say more specifically because the whole internship thing is, it's going well enough, but there are certain requirements I have to meet over time, and some of them are feeling like they're not getting met in a timely fashion, right?
Uh,
Like when you think of, well, these are all the things I have to do. I have 23 weeks. This, that divided by 23 means I need this many hours of this and this many clients and so on and so forth. And then when you don't hit that weekly quota, it's not really a big deal. 23 weeks, you can make it up a little here and there. But here with the third week starting, and some things already lagging a little bit behind. Again, not a disaster, not a big deal, but I'm a very cautious and I try to plan things out, fairly well. And so it starts to make me concerned when this early in the whole thing, there's issues. Although I'd rather have issues early, obviously, than late, right? So
yeah.
I can head those things off the pass and whatever. But so so what all that means is that when I'm thinking about next week, you asked me today what I think about next week. I've got a lot of concerns, not worries, but concerns about how certain things are going to happen and what I'll do if they don't. It's not a disaster, but I'm kind of in a. You've asked me this question about next week in a moment where right before we started, I'm kind of. That was exactly what I was thinking about. All the stuff that I'd like to happen that I don't know
You're
that'll
back.
happen. Okay, good. Things I'd like to happen that I don't know if they'll happen, and trying to put a plan together for what I'll do if they don't. And that takes a lot of mental. I prefer, but this is the kind of thing I prefer thinking about more than school. I don't. I wish the school stuff would just go away, and I can just think about this kind of stuff because it's not fun. But I would rather
Yes.
this is the kind of stuff I'd rather be doing with my time and energy and mental capacity, and not writing papers or reading textbooks anymore.
Now, this is very interesting because I am very strongly of two minds about what you just said. On the one hand, you and I approach this kind of stuff very similarly, and I would feel exactly the same as you do in this situation. This is exactly the kind of thing that like stresses me out and makes me uncomfortable, even if I know like the odds are it's gonna be fine. And it's something you and I have always related very well to that kind of vibe. On the other hand, I know from experience you were like this in multiple classes that you had early on where you're like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this could be bad. I don't know. And you got a fucking A in every single damn one.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I said, I worry about the same thing, but I have never known you to actually worry about this kind of stuff and it for ever to have the bad result.
Well,
But I
see,
also know that like it's the uncertainty that's bad. I almost feel like you'd be better off if your boss like tomorrow was like, you're not gonna pass, you're gonna fail, it's a done deal. You'd be like, that sucks, but okay, I know at least.
sure, but for me, it's not. I don't know if it's so much the not knowing as it is the who gets to say, right? So with school, it's not all up to me. I can do
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
I want. I can check all the boxes, whatever, but this person ultimately decides. Most of the stuff that I'm talking about now, some of it I don't get to decide or I don't have any influence on, but most of it I do. And that's why I prefer it, because I just and it's not because I'm a control freak or something. It's because these days, I don't trust people as much as I maybe used to. And so I just don't feel confident. Like, I don't feel like I can assume that people are going to do what in my mind is even what's in their best interest, uh, what seems to make the most sense. You know, so
Welcome to the dark side.
but most of these things are, like I said, some other people have something to say about it. But another aspect of that is those people, I do trust those people. I know those people. And not that I think they're always going to do the absolute perfect thing or whatever, but that if whatever happens, we can talk about it, we can deal with it. I'll have some kind of recourse in discussing it or dealing with it. That's another problem with the school thing, is not just that I don't know or trust a lot of these people, but I don't think I would have any recourse. Like, I wouldn't be able to do anything about it.
And
And
you
actually,
famously went to a really shitty school that barely counts as being accredited, so you know.
oh, come on. Well, and the thing is, I do have horror stories from my fellow classmates who have experienced this very thing, where a person did make what I would regard as, some higher up or teacher, whoever it was, did make what I would regard as a bad decision, and there wasn't anything they could do about it, because everything they tried to do about it just was taken as evidence that they were wrong or
Yeah.
whatever. So yeah,
I've never personally been abused by the police, but I don't trust them as far as I can throw them, and I cannot throw police very far. Although, fun fact, as a child, I was abused by a teacher who later quit teaching and became a police officer. So,
well, that sounds terrible.
I'm not physically abused, but yeah, he was a sixth grade teacher with the maturity level of a sixth grader.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
remember in sixth grade identifying that. And so he did some things to humiliate me in front of people, and also once lied on a form that got me in trouble. So,
Oh my gosh.
I mean, to be fair, I did something that was warranted of getting in trouble, but he detailed what he witnessed, and he was not present when any of it happened.
Oh.
He was a terrible man. He later had to quit the force because I believe he made it to sheriff, and then he got caught having an affair with one of his people, and so things wouldn't get bad. He resigned. I don't know. He was a shitty guy. I'm glad he's out of my life. But it just reminded me when you talk about not trusting people, because not trusting people makes me think about not trusting police, and not and being fucked over by the police makes me think of the only person I know who fucked me over and was a police officer, even if it wasn't at the same time.
Well, so yeah, life is better for me now, even though there's more things for me to worry about in some ways, and also I'm more responsible for those things. But I like I like that. I want to be responsible for it. I don't want to depend on someone else who I don't trust to be responsible for it. I'd
Because you're a
rather.
crazy control freak.
No, I think most adult human beings don't want to have someone controlling them. That's the problem. I mean, no, I don't think any of us want people controlling us. I don't think.
I want
Well,
my I want my dungeon master controlling me.
I was just gonna say, I was gonna circle around to that too. Oh man.
We were I will not and do not want to get into uh details about this, but you and I had a conversation not long ago that broached some topics involving kinks.
Sure.
And I remember you, and some of it involved personal information about me. And I remember the first thing you say is assuring me that the kink in question was not that unusual, and you'd known a lot of people who had that. And I just smiled and nodded with my head. I was like, bitch, I taught you most about what you know about kinks. How do you think I don't know that's a guy?
No, well, most of the people I had was thinking of when I said that are people I knew before I even met you. So
I know, but just the sheer audacity that you'd think I thought this was a weird and
no,
unusual.
no, I didn't think you thought that. I wanted
Okay.
you, I wanted you to know that I understood that, right? I
Okay.
wasn't going to be
Okay.
shocked or put off by it because I already knew that that was a thing.
Okay. Okay.
I knew
I
you
thought
knew
that
it.
was you. I thought that was, it sounded like you assuring me. You were like, actually, that's fairly common and all that. So I thought that was
Oh,
you assuring me
oh,
that
I
I
understand.
wasn't weird. And I'm just like,
No,
duh.
no, 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 no. I didn't. Sorry, I didn't mean it that
Also,
way.
if I had a kink that was super unusual and weird, which maybe I do have some, I'm not sure. Um, like I would be really proud of that.
I see why you thought that. And you're right. I did make it sound like no, but no, no, no.
It
I
was
was trying.
hilarious. I wasn't bothered at all, but I found it really funny.
No, I was just trying to assure you that I wasn't shocked or
Yeah,
surprised or like, oh my gosh, do people really do that? I mean, that's all I meant.
yeah.
That's all I meant. I'm sorry. You're
Like you
right. I
said.
did that wrong. I did that
No,
wrong.
it was I thought it was hilarious. Um well my week is
Yeah,
gonna
tell me
be
about it.
awesome.
Yeah, tell me all about it.
Um there's gonna be two different cakes involved, one of which is gonna be an ice cream cake because
What?
that was literally like the only demand I had for my birthday is I'm like, I want ice cream.
Oh, I was about to say, is it Jesus's birthday again? But it's your birthday. But I
My
suppose,
birthday and my sister-in-law's birthday. That is the entire reason for this trip. And is
right,
specifically my
right.
sister-in-law's 40th. So she wanted to do a big thing. And so the three
Mm,
of us are going and staying in a
mm,
cabin up
mm-hmm.
in Minnesota. I can say that because by the time this airs, we'll be back almost immediately. So the two people who listen won't have a chance to come and burgle my house. Um, I don't know. I feel like that's a real thing. Like, don't say on the internet that you're going to be away from home for an extended period because somebody would be
Probably.
like, all right, I'm bringing your house.
Yeah.
But so few people listen to this. We know all of them. And also, I'll be back
I think your
basically.
neighbors would notice though if someone did that.
Hopefully, I mean, one of them is going to be feeding the cats. So hopefully
Sure.
she'll notice.
Yeah. I mean, your
But
house
yeah,
is being watched really, so that would be dumb for someone to do
yeah.
that.
Um, but yeah, there's going to be two cakes involved, one of which is going to be ice cream cake. Uh, I am going to, for the first time in my life, a Brazilian steakhouse, which, as you
Mm,
may know, is on my culinary bucket list.
wow.
I don't have a lot left on my culinary bucket list. Um, there's that. There's the a sushi place that has the conveyor belt.
Mm.
Um, and there is eating at White Castle. Oh,
Oh,
and Korean corn dogs because I haven't been that yet. And Korean fried chicken is only recently on my bucket list, which works because I'm also gonna have Korean fried chicken while we're there.
nice. Now, so will the steakhouse have beef that's from Brazil?
Mm, mm, no, I don't believe so.
Hmm.
Are you not familiar with the Brazilian steakhouse?
No, but also I've heard people say that who travel extensively that when they have steaks in Brazil, they're the best they've ever had.
All right. I mean it's possible, but a Brazilian steakhouse is a style of restaurant based on culinary cultural tradition in Brazil.
Huh. Which I mean, maybe they'll get their steaks from Brazil.
It's possible, but I would think it would be above and beyond. I do not think the average place in the US that calls itself a Brazilian steakhouse gets its meat from Brazil.
Well, now the person who told me this, maybe they just thought it mattered if the beef was sourced in Brazil, and it's just how Brazilian people prepare it or marinate it or whatever else.
Or maybe it's really good. I mean, there are definitely places in the world where the beef is way better.
Well, that's what
But
this person thought. And this person would know. They were like an aficionado and they raised cattle
yes.
themselves and whatever. So it's
Yes.
like, yeah, this person must know.
Yeah. But that's eating at a Brazilian steakhouse is not on my bucket list because I give a shit about what the beef is like from Brazil.
Okay. I was curious, I guess.
A Brazilian steakhouse is a specific style of restaurant in which there are two components to it. One is a ton of side dishes that practically is its own sort of buffet thing, and there are lots of interesting
Oh,
things there. And
that's
then
cool.
outside of that, what happens is there are just people walking around with skewers or sometimes swords that just have meats on them. And they come to your table and they're like, this one is such and such pork shoulder, or this one is
Mm.
tenderloin or whatever. And then they will cut you off some, and then more will come by, and you just get as much as you want. And in most of them, you have a little thing on the table that's red on one side and green on the other. And if the red one's up, you're good. They can stay away. And if it's green, you want them to come over and give you more stuff. And it's just
Okay.
all grilled meats of different type. And apparently it's just amazing.
But it's also the menu and the way things are prepared are culturally Brazilian too.
I think so in most cases.
Oh, okay.
But in the same way that you could go to what we would call a steakhouse and they have lots of things on the menu that aren't steak. This
Mm.
is there's lots of different meats and so forth
Mm.
going on.
Mm.
But yeah, the big thing is they just have big skewers of it, and they'll come and they'll cut you off some, and it'll just keep showing up as long as you want it to show up. And I like
Right.
that. So I'm very excited. And also,
Well,
I've never spoken to a single person who's gone to a Brazilian steakhouse and not lost their goddamn mind over it. So I'm very excited.
Hmm.
People say it's very, I've seen some videos too, but also I know people who've gone. No, I'm sure it's really good. I mean, we've had uh I think it was Wagyu. The problem being some of these distinctions of specific types of beef, there is no law restricting saying,
Right.
which is
That's
why there
true.
are so many Kobe
That's
beef
true.
things. And that
Yeah.
may mean it is the breed of cow from which Kobe beef comes, but it in no way was dealt with or treated the way Kobe beef is treated. It
Mm.
may mean it is done in a style similar, I guess, or it may mean they just fucking lie.
Yeah.
Um, but like I have had something that was called Wagyu or Kobe beef, and it cost an insane amount of money for a piece about this big and like that thick. It was like 4 bites between Trish and I, and it was really expensive, but it did absolutely just melt in your mouth. So I can appreciate that different steaks are different, and I
Uh,
do like that.
just so the show I couldn't remember was Monarch we watched.
Oh yeah.
I don't have to talk a lot about that, but I just am mentioning it because I forgot.
Let me guess. You watch the whole thing and you'll watch more, but it's not really that good.
Uh, watch the whole thing. We'll watch more, and we really liked it.
Oh, all right, good.
Yeah, we thought it was. I think we both thought it was, kind of a step above the quality of the films. I mean, not in
All
production,
right.
not in
No,
production.
but
It's a TV
yeah,
production, but like the writing and the acting and the story and the character development and all that, it's quite good. I thought really good.
yeah.
But anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt what you were.
I believe it is the number 2 most popular thing on Apple TV currently. Trish had to go to the bathroom in between episodes we were watching on Apple TV, so I was just scrolling through the top list,
Yeah, we
and
liked
I
it.
think it was number 2.
I
Um,
liked it a lot.
all right. And I think there's other things happening next week, but none of it really matters to me. The only activities I really cared about were the food-based ones, so but I'm actually excited about the Korean fried chicken because it came up because we recently watched a Try Guys video in which they did, among other things, Korean fried chicken, and they went to a place that looked really good, and it's a chain, and there's one in Minneapolis that we're going to. So like the exact same company as the one I saw in the Try Guys video. So I'm very excited about that.
So I think I've said that Abby kind of likes Korean movies and TV and stuff, and sometimes she ends up watching videos about Korean culture generally, and especially Westerners visiting Korean culture. And the Korean fried chicken is mentioned and talked about over and over and over again. Like it's just the best. Like
It's a different creature, and
yeah,
in particular, I think the use of cornmeal is done in such a way that it just stays crispy. Like for like if you have fried chicken like we think of, after a while, it's not crispy.
yeah,
But apparently it really stays that way. Yeah,
nice.
so I'm very excited about that. Um All right. Things we've been watching. As I mentioned, we were gonna watch Big Trouble in Little China, and we did watch Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, yeah. How'd that go?
It was interesting. There were bits I had forgotten because I have not seen it in a very long time. It starts out with a framing story that never goes back to you, which
Oh,
is very weird.
then is it a framing story then? If it doesn't,
Well, I mean, it's half a frame. It starts off after all the events of the movie are done, and
yeah,
someone is interviewing a character from the movie and is like, "You're gonna have to tell me what happened." And then we cut to the start of the movie, and we
yeah,
just never go back to that.
huh? Interesting. That's really interesting.
It happens way more often than I would think it should.
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
seen it
yeah.
happen before, and I'm always just like, before you were done, at some point you watched the movie all the way through, right? Like somebody should have noticed.
It's almost a
Or
violation.
or from a filmmaking perspective, wouldn't you have shot the ending and the beginning, the framing parts at the same time?
It's almost a violation of that. What is it called? Chekhov's gun, where if you have a
Yes.
gun over the,
Chekhov's Chekhov's introduction.
it's like if
If
you're
you
gonna
set up
do
a
that,
story outside of the story in Act One, you really need to
you need
end
to
the
go
story
back.
outside of the story in
Yeah,
Act Three.
it's like having a gun over the mantelpiece.
Yeah,
It's, if
I
if
put
it doesn't shoot, something's wrong. You didn't do it right.
I hung if you hang a narrator over the man. That's another one that I love when a movie doesn't have an actual framing story, but it starts with narration, but then
Yeah,
never comes back to narration.
yeah,
And I don't
yeah,
mean
yeah.
sometimes it's clearly an introduction, but sometimes it's let me tell you a story about it, and then after a while the narrator just is gone.
Gone. Yeah.
But so watch this, and I want to juxtapose this slightly. So I want to say this. So recently I had Trish watch Beverly Hills Cop, and she was fine with it. She didn't hate. She's not sorry she saw it or anything, but she wasn't that into it, and she didn't feel like watching any sequels. Say something so I know you're still there because you stopped moving. No, wait, you
I'm
blinked. All right,
I'm
no,
still
you
here.
blinked. It's fine. You hold way too still for our technical difficulties. You gotta be
Oh,
like
well. I'm just a low
dancing.
energy guy. Just a low
Feel
energy
the
guy.
rhythm. Feel the rhythm. But and watching Beverly Hills Cop, I still loved it,
Mm,
but I am very much in a place that I know it is nostalgia. Like I cannot be objective at all about the quality of that film.
sure, sure.
It might be terrible, and I don't. General consensus doesn't seem to be that. And Trish didn't think it was terrible. She just wasn't that into it. Um, she felt similar about this one, but I just think she's wrong. And not like because it means something to me. Because I've probably only seen it 2 or 3 times, maybe in my life. Like I saw Beverly Hills Cop dozens of times. I've only seen this a couple times. And I don't have it like memorized or anything. There are plenty of bits I was like, oh yeah, that bit, or oh, I didn't remember that, things like that. And I'm not saying it is an award-winning, you know, piece of film craft or anything, but it's awesome and it's a real good time. And it does some things that similar 80s action movies did terribly, and I think does it really well. It is more dialogue heavy than it needs to be, but I find the dialogue quite entertaining. It's a surprisingly funny movie. um and I also feel like they really nailed Kurt Russell's the protagonist, and he's very much one of those wrong place wrong time reluctant heroes who's actually not actually good at heroing, and so like lots of accidents and dumb luck and shit like that, and they do it like believably.
Hmm.
Like they really walk that line of like he's saving the day just fucking barely with a lot of luck involved.
Hmm.
And he's also a nice anti-hero blend. It's definitely got some dated heteronormative misogynist views, but it's by no means one of the worst offenders you'd see from an 80s action movie.
Hmm.
And of the 3 female leads, only one of them is a sexy lamp.
Sexy lamp.
Do you know this thing? This is what somebody has pointed out. This is the advanced Bechtel test,
Mm,
because the Bechtel test is very useful, but it is a low bar.
yeah,
There
pretty
are a
low bar.
lot of films that treat women very poorly and are really sexist and misogynist that technically pass that test, and movies that do pretty well that still don't pass that test. But the sexy lamp test is a good one, and it comes from Christmas Story and that weird ass lamp he had.
Yeah.
Basically, if you could you replace the any of the female leads with a sexy lamp and have the
Mm,
same thing? Like, are they just a prop that people need to get or save
mm,
or whatever like
mm,
that, and they
mm,
don't
mm.
actually do anything? And one of the characters in this is that way. But there's a couple others that aren't. I mean, they still got to get rescued and shit because again, it's an '80s action movie. But like, they also do their own shit and are have agency at times, and
It's
that's
cool.
good. But it's a fun. It's as usual. I am really learning how mixed bag John Carpenter films are. Some of them are really good, some of them are really not. But running through consistently again, pretty solid music that he did, because that's like his thing.
Yeah, he does that. Yeah.
Although he did write an original song called Big Trouble in Little China. This is kind of silly. Uh, but also really good effects. And not just physical. I mean, it's 1986. It can't be CG per se, but post production effects also. Um, and people are really acting their heart out, and it's a lot of good actors: Kurt Russell, Kim Cattrall, James Hong, Dennis Dunn, uh, some others I can't remember. Oh, and Victor Wong. Oh, who I said was named Egg Foo. I want to take that back. His name is Egg Shen, and I got it confused. One, there's a DC villain called Egg Foo, who's one of the most racist things ever. And two, Egg Shen runs a tour company through Chinatown called Egg Foo Young Tours. So that's probably where I got confused. But his character is actually named Egg Shen. Anyway, it kicks ass. It's a fun time. I recommend it. It's also not that long. It's 98 minutes. So it's a good time.
Kurt Russell's in Monarch, as you might know.
I didn't. Did they de-age him? Most of the time nowadays they de-age him in just
No,
everything.
Kurt Russell is in Monarch as just the way
Is he
he is.
Godzilla? Oh my god!
But
Is
there
Kurt
are
Russell Godzilla? That would be awesome.
flashbacks of his
I could
character.
see him doing it. Like that would be so cool.
There are flashbacks of his character. Now, there are flashbacks of a number of characters, and they do de-age those characters, but they do not de-age Kurt Russell. They cast his son Wyatt to play him, young Kurt Russell, and it
That
works.
is that is surprising because
It
I
was,
am not kidding. They have de-aged Kurt Russell in a lot of shit.
and they de-aged other actors, which is
Yeah,
weird,
yeah,
but
yeah. But
not.
that's
Nope,
great.
they
I
cast his son.
like I'm not a fan of nepotism, but I do really love that shit. Like in the Willow TV series, which got canceled and I think actually got taken off Disney Plus, so I'm not sure anybody can even see it now.
Huh.
Because they did that with some things. Uh Val Kilmer's character's voice is in the movie,
Oh.
and it sounds exactly like him, even though he can't talk in real life anymore because of throat
Mm,
cancer or whatever it is.
mm,
Turns
mm.
out it's his son,
Oh, wow.
but he sounds exactly like him. It's so cool.
Interesting. Interesting.
Um, so I do enjoy when that happens, but in general, post snippets. But I like it better if he was Godzilla though. Also,
No.
maybe the title of the episode, Kurt Russell's Godzilla. But no, like the freaking Fast and Furious movies, they de-aged him. The first time I saw it, they de-aged. Oh no, wait, Jeff Bridges. I mean, the Fast and Furious movies, it was Kurt Russell, but the other one I was thinking of is Jeff Bridges in Tron Legacy, an underrated film in my opinion. Uh, and it did not. The de-aging did not look good.
Mm-mm. We saw that one. We saw that one recently. Yeah, it was not too bad.
I enjoyed it. There's actually Tron's fandom is broader than people realize, and some of it's really good. They did a Disney XD did a spin-off animated series called Tron Resistance or something, and it was sort of a sequel to Tron Legacy, in which we had a new young person who was going to save everybody and was mentored by Tron, voiced by oh, how did I lose his name? Scarecrow,
Oh,
Commander Sheridan, Bruce Boxleitner.
yeah,
Oh,
right.
that was gonna hurt my stomach all day if I didn't remember that. Is voiced by him. And there's a video game I haven't played yet that's like a detective, like visual novel style thing, called Tron Identity, that I've also heard is really good and is on my list to get. So there's a lot of interesting shit out there. It's always been tricky because Tron didn't get computers well because they didn't have hardly no computers back then. But they found sort of ways to deal with that in ways that I think are interesting. So yeah, we watched that. We just last night finished season 2 of The After Party. I recommend The After Party. Did you ever watch it?
Mm-mm.
All right. I recommend both seasons. I'm okay that it's canceled.
Oh,
It's got a formula to a degree. And so the first, and also it's sort of, at least both of them for me was very chaotic in the beginning of each season, and I was like, I'm not sure I like this, but then I really did like it. But in this one I could see the formula a little bit, and by a third one it would just be like, I've seen this before.
yeah.
And it's fun because they get a whole new cast of really fun actors and comedians. This one had Zach Woods, John Cho, Ken Jeong. Oh, I don't know the actor's name, but the guy who plays the creepy dude in Blackbird that I just saw, where he's like the scariest, nastiest rapist serial killer ever, and in this he's just like a goofy dude, and he does such a good job. Yeah, no, Trish watched it. It's on Apple. It's Blackbird. I think I talked about this. It's a
think you
really
did, yeah.
dark, nasty, based on a true story thing, and this guy plays the bad guy, and he's just awful. And I didn't spot him in this until Trish mentioned it, and then I saw it, and it's night and day, and he does a great job. It's a real fun time. But a Jack Whitehall, who is a British comedian that I really like, who is sort of breaking into broader films now and stuff like that. Yeah, is a good time. But yeah, I that two's enough. Oh, and Tiffany Haddish. I forget Tiffany Haddish is in both seasons because she's the cop involved. But it's very good. It's quite funny. It's quite clever. But two's enough. So we're done with that. The only other thing I wanted to mention, I didn't mention to you before, I meant to. I stopped Fargo.
Oh, you stopped.
Trish is watching. Yeah. I watched the episode with the puppets.
I don't. The puppets. I don't remember.
There was a lot of puppetry, and making puppets was a major plot point. So
Oh yeah. Sorry.
I was like,
Well,
there was a whole episode. The episode wasn't called Puppets, but if it had been, it would have been a perfectly good title for that episode.
there's actually a good reason for me to have forgotten that. But yeah, I don't
Um,
blame you. It's not.
and that episode happened, and then I saw how that one ended and where it was going, and I said, I'm done because this show sucks.
Yeah, it's
And
just
Trish
not.
is finishing it up. She's fine with it. She's like, I definitely don't see anything that you'd want to come back for.
No.
But it sounds like it's not getting worse, at least. So I guess that's something. But I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good.
Well, it wasn't. I mean, for me, this often happens. It's the whole expectations thing. It's like if I'd seen this just as an independent thing all by itself, not associated with Fargo, I don't even know what I think of it. I doubt I'd like it. But if you tell me this is a Fargo, this is like the other Fargo shows, and it's like I don't think it is. Even if it was really good, there would be a cognitive dissonance there that makes me go, nah, this isn't very good.
which is interesting because it's not like the previous 4 seasons have been the same. They've been very different in their way,
That's true.
but there's a vibe there. There's an overarching philosophy and theme
Yeah, and the way the
that
story is
isn't,
told.
and this one just feels very much a facsimile and not a particularly good one. And
Exactly.
again,
That's exactly right.
no fault to any performers. They are,
No, they're all good.
if you broke it up into clips, I couldn't tell you like which one is the not as Coen Brothersy one.
Yeah.
They definitely are doing their performances. It's just it's dealing with the themes and the kinds of things. It's dealing with subject matter that is very Coen Brothers, but it has nothing, in my opinion, interesting to say about it. And that's the only reason for Coen Brothers. Like without the humor and the skewed perspective, Coen Brothers movies would be the bleakest, most depressing things in the world, and no one should watch them.
Well, and
And
also
this doesn't have that, and it's really bleak and depressing.
but also that there's a certain tension that's established with that's hard, like any good tension, it's hard to establish and maintain, but usually Fargo and Coen Brothers in general do it, of ordinary people in surreal, extraordinary circumstances. And one of the problems is these characters aren't ordinary in any way. Like they're exaggerated, or they're like really capable, more capable or knowledgeable than ordinary people would be. And so you don't, that tension you establish between those two things is just not even there. It's this, it just doesn't feel like a Coen Brothers or Fargo story to me. But
Also, we split our devil, I'm now realizing.
mm,
Every season has a devil. Somebody who is unassailable and who is absolutely awful. And this time it's sort of split between John Hamm and the Swede
mm,
in a way
mm.
that doesn't work because the Swede is arguably more nasty, but I so like him. So like I would much rather hang out with him and like live with him. And John Hamm's character, he is performing it to all hell, but I'm like, he could die in a fire and that'd be fine. And that's it. Coen Brothers stuff and the Fargo TV series, which the Coen Brothers have technically not been heavily involved in. It's Noah Hawley, and Noah Hawley's
Yeah,
still doing this, so I don't know.
yeah,
But
right.
Coen Brothers stuff also, you have a hard time knowing how it's gonna end, and also a hard time knowing how you want it to end.
That's right. Exactly right. Yeah.
And this one, and again, I wasn't near the end, but I don't know how it's gonna end. I I don't think I care.
Mm, mhm,
I
mhm.
mean, I guess I want the bad people that like there's not a lot of moral ambiguity. The bad people in this are pretty bad, and the not
Mm,
bad people are pretty not bad. So
mhm,
I'm like,
mhm.
I mean, I guess I would like them, but like I don't care. Like the other ones has a lot of like, I hate this guy, but I can see the point. And this one, oh, and I like this person, but they're not like, and I, I don't know how justice would get served, if at all. In this one, I'm like, no, it's very clear what would be the good thing and the bad thing to happen.
Pretty
I
much.
don't know if that's what will happen,
Yeah, pretty much.
but it whatever. Um, and yeah, and also I don't know, maybe you hit a thing too. No, that's probably not fair. I don't know. Juno Temple and John Hamm and Dave Nelson are larger than life enough presences where I don't want to say that they don't disappear into their characters, but I have less tension because I know Juno Temple, John Hamm, and Dave Nelson definitely didn't die during the making of this show. So there's some, and it sounds insane, but there's a part of me that's like, it's fine. Juno Temple's gonna be in something else. Like it doesn't, she's not gonna die in this show, even if she dies in this show. John Hamm, if he dies, he'll still be John Hamm and he'll make other stuff. I don't know what it is. I didn't have that problem so much when it was like Chris Rock. Like I was in there with, and that season I didn't even, that season there were large parts of it I didn't really enjoy, but I was invested.
Yeah, I thought overall too, it was really good. I commend
Yeah,
Chris Rock for his performance because it was quite extraordinary.
especially because he's done a few other things that in general, I'm becoming less and less of a Chris Rock fan over the years. But
Hmm.
when he gets just the right thing, he's a remarkable actor.
Yeah,
Um,
this season doesn't even touch that seasons like that one,
no,
any of them
no,
really.
I don't think any of the performances were that difficult for anybody involved in this, except
Yeah,
again the
that's also
Swede.
true.
The Swede is kind of a fascinating character, but he's very much a side character and also dark and grim in an unpleasing way at times also, so he's not worth watching the whole show.
Mm,
um
mm.
anyway, yeah, so we stopped watching that, and then most of this shit's on hold because we're about to go on vacation, and we will take our Roku device, but we'll have my sister-in-law there, so we don't know what we'll watch with her or whatever, so that's about it. um Trying to think if there was something else I wanted to say. Well, let me kill a couple minutes here because we're almost done, but I want to throw this out here. Since nobody's emailing, I have to make up my own questions sometimes. Um, this is a broader question, but I'm going to ask it in a very specific way to start. Is Donald Pleasance a good actor?
You're gonna have to help me out with the role that I can remember.
We're talking about before. He was Father Loomis in the Halloween movies.
Oh yeah,
He.
yeah.
That's the thing. He is a very. I love his performances. Um, he is almost exclusively in B grade genre fodder.
Hmm.
You could make a similar argument, although it gets a little more dangerous here, but with Peter Cushing or most of the sort of classic monster actors. Um, if if somebody is really good at starring in B movies, are they like this becomes the like is uh Donald Pleasance a compelling actor? Yes. Is he an entertaining actor? Yes. Is he a successful actor? I would say so. But is he like could you throw him into something that required a lot more effort? Not to be overly trite, but could he do Shakespeare, that kind of thing? Because there are a lot of actors that I really like, but they're in like movies that I'm like, I really like this, but I'm not gonna say like he's a good movie.
Yeah, there's this whole sort of class of actor who will often show up in bad movies and whatever they're doing is pretty amazing.
Absolutely.
You're like, this is really good. And sometimes they've actually even been in something. Am I so F. Murray Abraham?
Oh
Maybe
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
thinking of.
yeah.
But also there's another guy who I sometimes get confused. I get these two actors confused all the time. I don't know if other people do. F. Murray Abraham and
I don't know the other guy's name, but
the he was in several things, but he was in Sneakers and he was in
oh, that's
didn't he
not
play
who I'm
Gandhi?
thinking of. Ben Kingsley.
Ben Kingsley, right? Ben Kingsley and
Yes.
F. Murray Abraham. Sometimes I get their names mixed up, but both of them have been in project F. Murray Abraham more, but both of them have been in projects where it's like, wow, why did you do this? You know,
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
you've been a celebrated actor in Amadeus and in Gandhi and all this stuff, and you're in this. But whatever they're in, they're great. But
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
why
But
they did it, I don't
that's a
know.
different category. Those are definitely good actors who have just made potentially confusing choices in their
All
career.
right, but then I
But there's
just
lots of reasons for that. But then there's actors who I'm like, no, they've never done a performance that is like, oh, they can do like because like I mentioned Peter Cushing, I didn't mention Christopher Lee because Christopher Lee has had one or two things that is like that dude is an actor.
Max von
Um,
Sydow.
maybe I want to say he's done some really crazy, awesome thing, but yeah, he might be a good example.
To me,
Um,
all of those guys are kind of in. Well, this is what I'm getting at. Maybe the actor you're talking about is really like them. He just hasn't had a project like that to show
well,
that
and
he
that's what
is.
I wonder, but
Yeah.
that Donald Pleasance again was just an example there. What
Mm.
I'm saying is, if you have one of those actors, and let's say that's all they ever do, if we
Yeah.
set aside the idea that like they weren't given the chance or whatever, because I mean that could be anybody. There
Yeah.
are some
Right.
really shitty actors that if you gave them the right, and that, in fact, there are some really shitty actors that eventually did do amazing
Mm.
things.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But setting aside the what if all they ever do is play really memorable and compelling roles in really mediocre to crappy movies, does that make them a good actor who just never got a chance, or an actor who just knew where their vibe was? And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a real answerable question. It's just an
Yeah.
interesting one to think
Yeah.
about. Because yeah,
Yeah.
like I have never not been enthralled when Peter Cushing is on a screen
I
ever.
know. I know.
But every movie, I'm like, it was like Hammer horror, or it was, they're not movies that I'm like, this is a well crafted, high quality movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I certainly would say he did a marvelous job in all.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, sometimes you get Anthony Hopkins has put in many performances that are far worse than the worst thing Peter Cushing's ever done.
Yeah.
But he's also had some performances that were absolutely amazing and Academy Award worthy, some of which he got Academy Awards for.
Yeah. Hmm.
Uh,
I don't know.
and so I always find, and does it matter? This also gets into what is a good movie, because there are lots of movies that I'm like, this is high quality, from the film craft to the acting to the editing to the direction. It's wonderful. I did not enjoy it. And other movies that I'm like, this was terrible, and I had a great time, and not because it was terrible. I had a great time despite it being terrible, or tangentially to it being terrible. Sometimes I enjoy it because it is terrible, but and so like, which is the good movie?
Yeah, I mean, I think something that maybe all these actors have in common is they 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 all have kind of a presence, right? I don't know what makes this happen, but when they're on the screen, you almost instantaneously care about what they're saying, what they're feeling, what they're doing, what's going to happen to them in the future. You're wondering what happened in the past. They just really fill the space, I guess. And I don't know how a person does that. I don't know what a person does as an actor to turn that on.
Have that presence.
Yeah.
And this may be a thing. I joke about this sometimes, but I love movies where people act really hard. That's how I phrase it. And the one I always hold up for this is the movie Crow, a movie I love, a movie I highly recommend. It has some things that are just objectively good about it, including the soundtrack. The soundtrack is amazing. Um, I don't I don't want to say, this is not me saying this, but it could be argued that no one gives a quality performance in it.
Mm.
But they all act so hard. They are trying, and it's so enjoyable because of that exact thing.
Mm.
And it's not, and that's, they all grab your attention. And a lot of it is very bombastic and things, but even when it's not, it's got an intensity that really grabs me. But I'm like, so I don't know that it's good in that it's not realistic, but it is good in that it was very entertaining and compelling. So what counts as good?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
And it's that same distinction that I talk about before about a movie might not be good, but it's awesome.
Mm.
Flash Gordon is an awesome movie. I
Mm-mm.
can express the argument that it's not good, but that movie is awesome. Shit is happening. Everybody is involved. Everybody tried really hard. It is it is the movies where I'm like, nobody gave a shit.
Yeah, I
That's what
know.
I hate. I will take anything over phoned in.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that so there's two things that an actor can achieve that will get you. One is that you can believe their character. I love that. I love when I'm like, I totally believe this person is a astronaut or a, a nuclear physicist. I totally believe it. Or they make you want to believe it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you
Or
don't believe it, but they make you want to.
or they just
And
make you want to see more.
yeah, 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 yeah. And
Um
that's pretty cool when they can do that.
and like there is an example like Talk to Me, which I talked about last week, has a very naturalistic thing. These teenagers seem like teenagers.
Yeah, right.
And far too often in a movie with that similar sort of plot, these teenagers seem like individual shitty character traits to get
Mm-hmm.
murdered. These
Yeah.
felt like real people. And that's a thing, and that's a good thing. And I think that's the harder thing to do.
Yeah.
But here's the best example of all time. It's also kind of sad because the young man in question had mental health issues and I believe either killed himself or died of a drug overdose years after this. But Manos Hands of Fate is a terrible movie by any imagination. It is a movie literally made by a fertilizer salesman on a bet. It is trash. It is frequently held as the worst movie of all time by many people. It's definitely in the bottom five. It is horrible. There is an actor in it who plays the side, the Igor to our main villain, and his name is Torgo. He looks like a hobo with giant knees for no reason. Like he's wearing pants and his knees are just, they padded them. So they're like this big to his leg that's like this big for no reason. And he just sort of, he is so compelling in the film. Nothing else about it. You could literally drop off to sleep at any single moment except when he's on the screen. He doesn't have a lot of lines. He's not a good actor, but he is there. He is in it and he is acting the shit out of it as best he can. And it's incredibly compelling.
Mm.
And I think that says something in a movie where literally every other aspect can go do one. Like, oh my God, he brings something that is entertaining.
Huh.
Nothing else in the movie is even entertaining unless you're making fun of it, a la Mystery Science Theater. Although I will say, this is the only Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode that was so bad that both the mad scientists paused in the middle to privately apologize to Joel for making them watch the movie. Never happened in any other one, but they both, like when the other was out of the room, was like, come on, I know this is hard, I'm sorry, but like that never happened because it's that bad. I didn't make that up. It literally a fertilizer salesman got into an argument with a screenwriter about how easy it was to make a movie, and he made a bet and he made a movie. And he stars in it too. And he's terrible. And it's terrible. It's dumb and poorly shot, poorly edited, clearly zero budget. The first 10 minutes is just establishing shots of people driving down roads. It's insane. It's horrible. But the dude who plays Torgo is riveting. He's also terrible, but he's got that presence you're talking about. Like I
Yeah.
want to follow Torgo.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Huh. Interesting.
So that's the magic of but I don't know. But Donald Pleasance made me think because I'm like, I love Donald Pleasance. And I'm like, but he's never been in a like not pretty bad movie. I mean, you could argue, I mean, I'm sure people could, the Halloween movies, but no, those movies aren't that good. I'm sorry, people.
No, not even the first one.
I get that they were important and they
Yeah.
burst barriers, and that's great. And I'm so glad it's out there. It's not great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wonder about that stuff. We're over time. I gotta come back from Minnesota, which means I gotta go to Minnesota. So I'm gonna do that. Write in I mean, if you enjoyed this, that's great. Listen more. If you didn't enjoy this, don't stop listening. Instead, write us an email. So we'll talk about what you want us to talk about. And then maybe you'll enjoy it. Give us that at least. Also, go to the blog and talk about actors that you really enjoy, but you're not sure they're good. Or tell me how wrong I am about one of the various hot takes I had today. I had a lot of hot takes about a lot of things, so give it to me. Come on, bring it. Bring it. I can take it. Now that I'm not parenting anyone anywhere. Speaking of which, my mental health, so my mood is quite, I mean, a big problem with my mental health is my mood is incredibly temperamental and based on nothing. One day I feel like I'm on top of the world, and another day I feel horribly, horribly depressed, and nothing has actually changed. And this is a problem that I have, these cycles and how unpredictable they are. So, given that, it's possible I just randomly am in the happy time. But since this realization from therapy, I've been really feeling good about things. So
Good.
it has
Good.
given me some interesting perspective, and I like that.
That's good.
Anyway, yeah, so write in or go to the blog and also listen again next week. And apparently watch Monarch starring Kurt Russell as Godzilla and Jeff Bridges